New calls to boycott the Beijing Winter Olympics, not just for diplomats, but for everybody. Today, the Republican Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas urged the Biden administration to pull American athletes out of the Winter Games. He says America should stand up to China's human rights abuses.
We should launch a complete and total boycott of China's genocide Olympics. I regret that this will prevent about 300 of America's world-class athletes from competing in the Olympics. They've been failed by the leaders of the international Olympic movement, who should have never awarded these games to a communist tyranny.
The push for a boycott comes with just 78 days until the start of the Winter Games. CNBC's parent company owns the broadcast rights to the Olympics, and some competitions are scheduled to air on this network. CNBC senior White House correspondent Kayla Tausche now. Kayla, the president was asked about this today.
And Shep, today President Biden confirmed publicly for the first time that the United States is considering a coordinated diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics over China's record of myriad human rights abuses and forced labor. Here's the press secretary today.
You've seen not just in words we've used, but certainly in actions we've taken at the G7 and other sanctions that we have serious concerns about the human rights abuses we've seen in Xinjiang. And certainly there are a range of factors as we look at what our presence would be.
CNBC reported last week that G7 nations were discussing such a move and had not yet reached a final decision on attendance, as President Xi weighed whether to extend an invitation during a meeting with President Biden earlier this week. In all, 6 Olympics have seen some kind of boycott. The largest took place in 1980, when 65 nations, led by the United States, refused to participate in the Games in Moscow, citing the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan. Americans risked losing their passports if they tried to compete. The Soviets won a record 195 medals and retaliated by boycotting the Los Angeles Games 4 years later. In the Summer Tokyo Games, rescheduled for this past summer, some leaders stayed home because of COVID. President Biden sent the First Lady in his place. As for a full boycott, U.S. officials have suggested they don't want to penalize U.S. athletes, inadvertently elevate the nations they're protesting, or stoke an inevitably deeper conflict. But the calls are certainly growing louder from Capitol Hill. Shep?